In a world where talent is often judged by fame, wealth, and appearances, one blind black girl stepped onto a stage no one thought she belonged on, and rewrote everything. At just 12 years old, Ariel James walked into a concert hall filled with polished pianos and polished egos, hoping to share the music she had taught herself to play on a broken piano in a Harlem apartment, but instead of encouragement she was laughed at, mocked by none other than Victor Langston, one of the most celebrated pianists alive. To him she was just a poor, blind girl with no place in his world of grandeur, but what he didn't know was that Ariel's music wasn't just sound, it was her voice, her soul, and her strength. And when she finally got the chance to play, her fingers told a story no one expected. The moment she touched the keys, the world stood still, and what came next would stun not only the man who had ridiculed her, but millions across the globe. This is a story of humiliation, heartbreak, and an extraordinary comeback that proves greatness doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to be heard. 12-year-old Ariel James sat quietly in the back row of the Lincoln Symphony Hall, her fingers gently tracing the velvet lining of the seat. Her dark glasses concealed eyes that had never seen a sunrise, a mirror, or even the piano keys she played each day. Born blind, Ariel had learned early on to experience life in other ways through scent, texture, and especially sound. Her braided hair swayed softly as she tilted her head, absorbing the gentle hum of the tuning instruments, the rustle of the crowd, and the echo of nervous coughs bouncing off the marble walls. She could feel the energy in the room building. She wasn't just there to hear music. She had come to feel it, from the vibrations in the floor to the emotion laced between each note. Next to her sat her mother, Denise, a woman with kind eyes and tired hands, who had worked double shifts as a hospital nurse just to afford these tickets. Denise's dream was simple, to give her daughter one unforgettable night and maybe, just maybe, a shot at being heard. On stage tonight was Victor Langston, a towering figure in the world of classical music. He was a prodigy-turned global phenomenon, known for his electrifying performances and sharp tongue. People called him a genius. Others whispered he was a narcissist who didn't believe in sharing the spotlight, especially not with amateurs. But none of that mattered to Ariel. She had listened to Victor's recordings so often that she could hum every one of his piano solos in perfect pitch. She didn't idolize him, she studied him. She listened not just for technique, but for the emotional fingerprints behind every phrase. And tonight she would finally hear him live, but Ariel carried more than just hope with her. In the pocket of her coat was a small cassette recorder, scratched and well loved. Inside it were hours of her own music original compositions, all learned by ear and recorded late at night on a battered upright piano at home. The middle C key stuck sometimes, the pedals squeaked, but her music lived anyway. Denise had sent a letter weeks earlier to Victor Langston's manager, asking for a brief moment after the concert, a few seconds for her daughter to share her gift. No reply had come, but Denise brought Ariel anyway. Sometimes, she whispered, you don't wait for the door to open, you knock harder. The concert began. Victor entered the stage to thunderous applause, bowing modestly, though everyone knew he expected it. Ariel could feel the electricity in the air as the first note struck. It was powerful, rich, almost alive. As Victor played, she sat perfectly still, eyes closed beneath her glasses, fingers twitching as though echoing his movements. When the final note rang out nearly 2 hours later, the room exploded in a standing ovation. Ariel rose slowly with the crowd, clapping with a wide, awed smile. Her body had memorized the music, it had moved through her like a current. Afterward, in the velvet, draped backstage lounge, Victor stood surrounded by champagne glasses and elite patrons in tailored suits. He laughed loudly at someone's joke, clearly basking in the glory. Denise approached cautiously, holding Ariel's hand. "Mr. Langston," she began, "this is my daughter, Ariel. She's blind, but she plays piano by ear and composes her own music. We were hoping, if you could just give her 1 minute of your time." Victor arched an eyebrow, his expression amused more than curious. "Blind," he echoed, his voice silky and sharp. And she wants to be a pianist. Denise stiffened but said nothing. Victor continued, now addressing Ariel directly. Sweetheart, playing real music takes more than just hitting the right keys. It takes vision, literal and otherwise. Laughter rippled from the small crowd around him. Ariel didn't speak. Instead, she pulled the cassette recorder from her pocket, pressed play, and held it forward. A haunting melody filled the lounge, soft, original, and undeniably beautiful. It was delicate, layered, emotional. The laughter died. Victor frowned. Where did she steal this from? He asked, turning back to Denise. Chopin, Liszt, don't insult me. I don't have time for parlor tricks. Denise opened her mouth, but Ariel gently tugged her sleeve. Let's go, Mama, she whispered. As they turned to leave, Victor looked away, already absorbed in his next glass of champagne. He didn't know that the girl he had just dismissed would soon play a piece the world would never forget. But Ariel knew, and she was just getting started. Back in their cramped but warm Harlem apartment, the echoes of the concert hall still rang in Ariel's memory. But they no longer felt magical, they stung. She sat at her old piano, the one she had played since she was 5. The wooden legs were uneven, the surface was scarred, and 2 keys, E and F, had long stopped working. But none of that mattered now. This was her space, her sanctuary. Ariel placed her fingers gently on the keys, and without a word, replayed the melody from her recorder. It wasn't perfect, not yet, but it was hers. She moved slowly at first, then faster, building layers of harmony and rhythm. The emotion behind each note was different now, stronger, deeper. The humiliation she'd felt at the concert hall had transformed into fire. And fire, when channeled through music, could ignite something the world couldn't ignore. In the doorway, Denise stood silently, arms folded, her eyes shimmering. She didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. She watched her daughter pour her soul into every note, every phrase, and every silence in between. When Ariel finished, her mother stepped forward and knelt beside her. You know what to do now, baby, she said softly. Let the music speak, and Ariel did. Each day after school, while the city bustled outside their window, she sat at that broken piano and composed. She didn't just play classical, she mixed styles fearlessly. One day it was soft gospel runs, the next it was complex jazz chords layered over haunting melodic lines. Ariel was creating something original, something alive. Her fingers moved with a confidence that hadn't been there before. She wasn't chasing anyone's approval now, she was answering her own calling. Some nights her neighbors knocked on the wall not to complain, but to ask for more. A few even pulled up folding chairs in the hallway outside their apartment door, listening to the music drifting through the vents like magic on the breeze. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the buildings orange and gold, Ariel's Uncle Jerome arrived, his janitor uniform dusty and damp from another long shift at the Lincoln Center. He carried something in his hand, a little wrinkled and bent from being stuffed in his coat pocket. Got something for you, kiddo, he said, handing it to Denise. She took the flyer, read it over, and let out a small gasp. What is it? Ariel asked, curious at the change in her mother's breathing. Denise quickly pulled a pen and scribbled some notes in Braille across a note card. She placed it in Ariel's hands. Ariel traced the raised dots carefully. Open talent showcase for unsigned performers. Winner gets a scholarship to the Hamilton School of Music. Her voice caught on the last line. That's the one, Jerome said, smiling. Saw the flyer on the bulletin board backstage. Thought of you right away. Ariel's fingers trembled as she clutched the note card. The Hamilton School was legendary, only the best of the best trained there. It was where Victor Langston himself had studied, where greatness began. I can't, she whispered. That place is for real musicians. Denise knelt again just like she had by the piano. You are a real musician. You compose with your soul. That school has never heard anything like you. But what if Victor's there? Ariel asked, her voice barely audible. Denise didn't hesitate. Then he'll hear you again, and this time he'll remember your name. There was a long pause before Ariel finally nodded. Okay, she whispered, let's do it. From that moment on, everything changed. Their apartment became a workshop. Jerome borrowed sheet music paper from the center. Denise cooked quick meals so Ariel could practice longer. Even neighbors offered to help, bringing extra lamps and a better bench someone had found at a yard sale. And Ariel, she played like a storm. She began crafting a new piece from scratch, something unlike anything she'd ever written. It combined the styles she loved, the emotional strength of gospel, the technical challenge of classical, and the freedom of jazz. She named it Sight Beyond Sound. It was a tribute to her journey, a message to everyone who had ever doubted her. She practiced that piece until her fingertips ached and the piano bench wobbled from use. She memorized it by instinct, by feel, by heart. Because she wasn't just playing for a prize. She was playing to prove that she didn't need sight to be seen. And soon the world would hear her loud and clear. The week before the Open Talent Showcase was supposed to be Ariel's final countdown. A time to polish every note, every phrase, every breath in her new composition, Sight Beyond Sound. She imagined herself on that stage already, the bright spotlight warming her face, the hum of the audience like a soft wave beneath her music. But life had other plans. That Sunday afternoon, Harlem was hit with one of the heaviest rainstorms in years. Thunder rumbled low like a distant drumroll, and torrents of water poured relentlessly from the sky. In their small apartment building, the basement where Ariel's beloved piano sat, began to flood. Denise noticed it first. The smell of damp wood and cold water drifted upward as she hurried down the narrow stairs, heart pounding. Her fears were confirmed when she reached the basement door and pushed it open. The sight was devastating. Water had pooled across the floor, soaking boxes, sheet music, and most heartbreakingly, the piano. Ariel's instrument, the old upright that had been her closest friend for years, was submerged almost halfway up its legs. The keys, once so familiar beneath her fingers, were swollen and sticky. The wood warped and bowed, cracking in places. It was clear the piano was ruined. Denise called out softly, "Ariel, come see." When Ariel shuffled down the steps, her dark glasses hiding eyes wide with disbelief, she touched the damaged keys and felt the cold wetness. The piano, her lifeline, had been destroyed. That night she cried herself to sleep, the weight of the loss heavy on her young shoulders. She felt like the music inside her was drowning too, but mornings bring new hope. The next day, a deep rumble echoed down their street as Jerome pulled up in an old, battered truck. His janitor's uniform was stained with grease, but there was a lightness to his step as he came to the door, carrying something large under a canvas tarp. Ariel opened the door just as Jerome was uncovering the surprise. Under the dust and scratches sat an upright piano, not new but sturdy. The wood was scratched and worn, and some of the keys were yellowed, but the instrument looked whole. Jerome grinned, found this beauty in an abandoned church a few blocks from Lincoln Center. They were getting rid of it, figured you might want her. He pulled a small tuning kit from the truck bed. Spent all last night tuning her up. Took a few hours, but she's ready. Ariel's lips curled into a smile through her tears, the music stirring in her heart again. She ran her fingers over the keys tentatively, then with growing confidence, the piano sang beneath her touch. That day and every day after, Ariel practiced harder than ever. She immersed herself in Sight Beyond Sound, the piece she had composed to show the world who she really was. Her fingers flew over the keys, blistering in spots, but she never stopped. This piano wasn't just an instrument, it was a lifeline, a promise that nothing could keep her from her dreams. As the day of the showcase drew near, Denise and Jerome helped Ariel prepare. They rehearsed the routine, how to enter the stage, where to place her hands, how to sit comfortably at the piano. Jerome even arranged for a volunteer to guide her to the stage, so Ariel could focus entirely on the music. Finally, the night arrived. The auditorium was packed, the air buzzing with anticipation. Bright lights shone down on the stage, reflecting off the polished wooden floor. Cameras dotted the room, streaming the event live to viewers across the city. The hum of whispers and shuffling feet faded as the host introduced the next performer. Ariel felt a flutter in her chest as the volunteer gently took her hand and led her forward. Every step was measured, every breath steady. She took her place at the piano, the spotlight warm on her skin. The room seemed vast and silent, waiting. And then, as she looked out toward the audience, or rather, as much as she could without sight. Her heart skipped a beat. In the front row sat none other than Victor Langston. His sharp eyes met hers briefly, surprise flickering in their depths. The man who had dismissed her only weeks before was here, watching, listening, the moment held like a silent challenge. Ariel's fingers hovered just above the keys. Then, with a deep breath, she began. The auditorium held its breath. A hush so deep fell over the room that every heartbeat seemed to echo against the polished wood and velvet seats. The bright spotlight that had shone fiercely on Ariel softened until it was just a gentle glow, framing her small figure at the piano like a beacon in the darkness. Ariel sat still for a moment, fingers poised just above the keys, her breath slow and steady. The world outside the music disappeared. She wasn't the blind girl from Harlem or the one laughed at by Victor Langston. She was a vessel for the story she needed to tell, the story only her fingers could speak. Then, softly, her fingertips touched the piano. The first notes were like whispered secrets in the quiet night, delicate, fragile, almost hesitant. They floated through the air like a fragile thread, weaving its way through the crowd's anticipation. The melody carried a haunting quality, as if Ariel was inviting everyone into a secret space where only truth could live. Slowly, the music began to rise. Her fingers moved with graceful confidence, flowing from one note to the next with ease. The melody gained strength, a pulse of life born from the depths of her soul. The soft notes gave way to a sudden surge of powerful chords, rich and resonant like thunder, rolling over a distant mountain. The room seemed to expand and contract with the rhythm. The music became a river winding between delicate jazz riffs and soulful blues phrases that danced like flames flickering in the dark. Ariel's hands glided across the keys, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce, painting vivid pictures in sound. In the front row, Victor Langston sat motionless, his face unreadable, but his fingers twitched slightly on his knee, betraying the storm of emotion inside him. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something he hadn't felt in years: humility. The music touched something raw within him. His breath caught in his throat. As Ariel moved into the crescendo, the heart of her piece, the air itself seemed to hum with electricity. Her fingers raced over the keys in a blur, the notes cascading like a waterfall, powerful yet controlled. Every chord spoke of struggle, hope, and victory. It was as if the piano was no longer wood and strings, but a living, breathing being carrying Ariel's voice to the farthest corners of the room. Tears began to stream down Victor's face. Unseen by most, they traced the lines of a man who had forgotten what true passion felt like until now. The final note rang out, clear and pure, a bell tolling through a quiet church on a Sunday morning, calling the world to listen. The sound lingered long after the key was released, filling every silent space in the auditorium with meaning. For a moment there was only silence, then, like a tidal wave, the room erupted in applause. The audience rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, some wiping tears from their eyes. The sound was thunderous, shaking the walls and echoing through the rafters. Cameras caught every expression of awe, every smile of disbelief. Ariel's breath hitched, but she stayed seated a second longer, letting the moment wash over her. Then, carefully, she rose to her feet, guided by instinct and the memory of the stage's edges. She bowed deeply, a shy smile breaking across her face. She didn't see it, but Victor Langston was the first to rise. His hands pounded together, harder than anyone else's in the room. His applause was loud, genuine, and filled with the kind of respect that words could never convey. Later, backstage, Victor would seek Ariel out. But for now, the music had said everything. The spotlight had faded, the applause still ringing in the air, but the world around Ariel James suddenly felt overwhelming. Reporters swarmed like bees, their microphones and cameras aimed at her. Voices clamored, asking questions she could barely hear over the pounding of her own heart. But Ariel had only one request: "Where's my mom?" Denise appeared immediately, pushing through the crowd, her face shining with pride and relief. She wrapped Ariel in a warm embrace, holding her tight as if to make sure her daughter was truly there. safe and victorious. "You did it, baby," Denise whispered, tears shining in her eyes. Ariel smiled against her mother's shoulder, the exhaustion and adrenaline mingling in her chest. Then, through the gathered throng, a familiar figure emerged. Victor Langston. The same man who had mocked her weeks before now looked different. The arrogance was gone, replaced by humility and something deeper, respect. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Miss James," he said, his voice steady but soft, "I owe you an apology. I misjudged you." Ariel looked up, meeting his eyes. There was no anger or bitterness in her smile, only kindness and understanding. "It's okay, Mr. Langston," she said quietly. "You just couldn't hear me the first time." Victor chuckled, a genuine laugh that surprised even him. "That was a mistake I won't make again." He paused, then took a deep breath. "Would you consider studying under me? I've never met anyone with your gift. Your music, it's unlike anything I've ever heard." Ariel thought for a moment. The opportunity was incredible to learn from a legend. But more than anything, she wanted to stay true to herself. "Only if I get to play my own music," she said firmly, a confident spark in her voice. Victor smiled broadly, extending his hand. "Deal." The months that followed were a whirlwind. Ariel moved to the Hamilton School of Music, her days filled with practice, lessons, and endless creativity. Victor became not only her mentor, but a fierce advocate, encouraging her to push boundaries and redefine what it meant to be a musician. Her unique style, a blend of gospel soul, jazz improvisation, and classical technique, began to attract attention far beyond the school walls. Critics called her a revolutionary talent, while audiences felt deeply moved by the honesty and passion in her performances. Then came the night no one would forget. At Carnegie Hall, the prestigious concert venue where legends were made, Ariel took the stage to perform her signature piece, Sight Beyond Sound. The hall was packed with fans, journalists, and music lovers who had followed her journey from that tiny apartment in Harlem to the world's most iconic stage. As the lights dimmed and the first notes filled the air, the crowd fell silent once again. The music spoke louder than any words could. It told a story of struggle and triumph, of being unseen and finally seen, of darkness transformed into light. The final chord echoed long and clear, a triumphant call that resonated in every heart present. The standing ovation that followed was thunderous, a celebration not just of Ariel's talent, but of her courage and spirit. In that moment, the world saw her not as the blind girl who had once been mocked, but as a brilliant artist who had redefined what it meant to listen, to feel, and to create. Backstage, Victor stood nearby, tears in his eyes once again. This time, there was no need to apologize. The circle was complete. Ariel smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. The world had finally heard her. Ariel James didn't just play a beautiful song, she rewrote the definition of talent. She proved that music isn't about what you see, but what you feel. She faced mockery, doubt, and even silence, but she let her passion speak louder than any words. Her journey reminds us that gifts don't need permission to shine. All they need is courage and someone brave enough to play their own tune, no matter who's watching. Victor Langston may have had fame, but Ariel had fire. And in the end, it was her music that changed his world. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs inspiration today. Musicals, Sparkles, what did you think of Ariel's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, no matter who you are or where you come from, your voice matters. Keep believing, keep creating, keep dreaming. Clapperboard, thanks for watching Hidden Realities, where the unheard stories finally get told.